Okay, hi guys. So for those of you guys who just joined, right, welcome to Vantage Live Analysis session. So I'll just wait for about 1 to 2 more minutes for more people to stream in, right? So let's give it about 1 to 2 more minutes. At the same time, if you guys have any questions with regards to the analysis or specific charts requests that you want us to take a look at, please put them under the questions tab. So I'll just bring up my screen, right? So let me just bring that up. And yeah, so for those of you guys who just joined, welcome. Right, so we do have our webinar sessions on a daily basis. So on Wednesdays, we basically covered key trade setup. Right, so we look at a few setups, mainly on, so pound yen, pound Aussie, and gold. And then right now we'll be reviewing the setups. And I'll also be showing you guys the setups that I'm looking at. So mainly for today, it's a pretty quiet day. So we'll be looking at the dollar index as well as euro dollar. And if you guys have any specific charts requests, please put them under the questions tab as well. So just give me a moment as I bring up my screen, right? And if you guys have any specific chart requests, you can put them under the questions tab. So let me just change this. Okay, so this is what we will be covering for today, right? So for those of you guys who just joined, welcome, right? So we will be covering the live analysis session for today. So just a quick introduction of myself. I'm Lee Sing. So I'm an FX strategist. I also provide FX advisory to institutional clients, and I'm part of the team that's recognized by the technical analysts for the best FX research for 4 consecutive years. You can also find me on LinkedIn here, right? So this is a link. So if you guys have any questions with regards to the analysis that was done on Wednesday as well as Friday. So on Wednesday and Fridays, we have our live trading sessions. And on Thursdays, we will be covering specific educational topics. So if you guys have any questions with regards to that, right, please, you can either put them under the Q&A box that we have over here or put them under the chat box, right? And separately, if you have any questions, you could be looking at a recording, right? You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. So let's start, right? So just before we start, a quick disclaimer. The information presented over here, it's not to be treated as investment advice, right? So it's for educational purposes only. So this is the agenda that we will be covering for today. So we will be covering mainly on the key economic events. So for that, we will be hopping on to the economic calendar, right? Just to see what are the key events released for today, right? So this is important, especially if we're trading the FX markets. We want to be sure that we are not caught in the middle of a huge event, right? So for example, your central bank's interest rate decisions. So this can cause quite a bit of volatility. And then after that, we will also be looking at the trade setup. So it will be a review of the previous Wednesday's call, as well as the setups that we're looking at for the coming week. And then I'll also open the floor to Q&A questions, right? So actually throughout the session, we will be having the Q&A question open, right? So I'll just leave the chat box running on my other screen so that I can see any questions that you guys might have. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them, right? So let me just bring up the screen and let's take a look at them. Okay, so if you guys have anything, don't feel free to put it under either the Q&A chat or the chat box. So either one would work. Okay, so with that, let's start. So on Wednesday, we did 3 calls, right, on pound Aussie, pound yen, and gold. So we will be taking a look at them, right? Just maybe before we hop onto TradingView, let me just bring out the economic calendar as well. So let's take a look at the economic calendar and see what we have. So for economic calendar, you can go to vantagemarkets.com, right? So under vantagemarkets.com, just go to educational and tools here. So under this tab, you can just click on economic calendar. So what we see over here, you can see that this would be categorized according to the currency, right? So essentially what it shows is that the economic data that's released and which currency it's involved. So generally the ones, right? So depending on what you're trading, if generally I look at the G7, right? So all the G7 currencies, and to the right of it, you can see that these are small boxes, right, in different colors. So what this shows is that the ones with the darker colors, so the ones with dark red, essentially, would be the ones with the highest impact. So in this case, you can see that interest rate decisions, right? So generally in the FX market, when central banks have their monetary policy meetings, it's going to impact the currency, right? It will cause quite a bit of volatility. So today, right? So let's see what we have. So you can see today, 9 September, Friday. So we have data on the dollar as well as the CAD, I believe. Let me see where it went. Yeah, so we have data on the dollar, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell speaking, as well as the, oops, I missed this. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so on the euro, as well as the CAD. Okay, so these are the key economic data that we have for today. So with that, let's hop on to the chart. So in this case, you can see just one more thing, right? So generally the ones with the lighter colors, right? So gray as well as amber over here, you can see that this colors itself, they are the ones with lower impact. And to the right of it, maybe just to explain a little bit more on this, right? So these are the actual data that's released, and you can usually compare it to the forecasted value, right? So depending on what's the expectations, if data turn out to be better than expected, right? So this one, it really depends on what is the kind of data, right? If you're looking at employment data, or even employment data, and even let's say inflation data, those will be the two key ones that central banks are watching out for now for the interest rate decision. So let's take a look at that, right? So that's one, right? I have a question, right? So DXY broke 109, surprisingly. You know the real reason why, and it continues. Will it correct back to the line, becoming resistance in tonight's session? So let's take a look at the dollar index in a moment, right? So we'll be taking a look at the dollar index chart. So what you can see over here, it's that generally the Fed has been more hawkish, right? A big part of it is because of inflation. So they have been trying to bring inflation back to the 2 to 3% target. But you can see that in, I think yesterday, ECB's meeting, what happened is that they also raised interest rates by 75 basis points. So part of what could be attributed to the recent dollar weakness is that you can see that the market has really been priced in, right? So the interest rate in terms of hawkish Fed has been priced in. That's one. And also right now you see a narrowing gap between other central banks. So ECB, they just saw a 75 basis point rate hike. So that's just more on the fundamental side, right? Let's take a look at the dollar index chart in a moment. So let me just bring out the dollar index chart. Before we go to the dollar index chart, right? So we had a review of this. So let me just bring this up. We look at this. Take a look at this. So on pound yen, right, on the higher time frame, just a review of those, a quick recap of what we have covered on Wednesday. You can see that on the higher time frame. So this is on the weekly time frame on pound yen. Essentially what we have over here is that prices are sitting on a support and resistance level. So we saw this area. You can see price coming in to test this region again over here, and right now it's sitting on this region itself here. And then when we go down to the daily time frame, you can see that this region itself, there are supply areas that are being respected here. And this is the last region where price entered here. This is on pound yen. So right now prices are on a daily resistance area that we have. And when you go down to the smaller time frame here, this was the previous support level that we've highlighted. So I think back on Wednesday, we did this analysis. Well, somewhere here in time, you can see here, right? So this is on 7th September. It should be at around 8 p.m. So it should be here. Yeah, so this is the area that we were looking at. So anything to the left of the purple line that we have here. So essentially on this area itself, you can see that prices are still holding above the support region that we see here, right? So we also did a retracement and extension. So we see that there are Fibonacci confluence levels lining up here. So what we have over here is that this area itself is our support region. It is also our downside confirmation level. So recall this region, right? So what we're waiting for is a clear break and close below this region as highlighted. So this colored candles would represent our projection. Essentially, we're waiting for a clear break and close below, a retest of that as a resistance before it continues to the downside. This would also be in line with the higher time range resistance, but you can see that this didn't happen, right? So in this case, the downside confirmation did not play out. So which is why it's important that we wait for a break and close below first before taking any shots. So in this case, price supported, right? It just held above this region, so it's still supporting this demand area over here. And right now it's just hovering within this area. You can see here, right? Prices are moving and moving sideways. So prices are sitting on a resistance area at the same time, right? It's still respecting the smaller time frame support region here. So depending on how price play out here, I'll still be waiting for the downside confirmation if it happens, right? So this region, let me just shift this. So this region, right? So I'm still waiting for a clear break and close below this region before it continues down, right? Before price breaks below this region that we have found over here, for me, right, there'll be no shorts. So this is the area. So let me just put this colored candles right here. There we go. So yeah, so this is what I'm waiting for on pound yen. Let's take a look at the other setup that we have, right? So the other setup is on pound Aussie. So let's give it a while to load. I think this is slightly slower. Okay, this is slightly laggy, so I'll probably just turn off my video just to see if it's a little bit better here. There we go. Okay, so this is what we have on pound Aussie. Sorry, just let me bring up the right chart so that we have the analysis then, please. Okay, so this is on pound Aussie, right? So from the higher time frame, you can see this region over here. So back when we made the call on Wednesday, right? This is where we are in time. You can see that essentially prices are still sitting on this support region. It was a previous resistance, then support area. You see prices testing this resistance area before it broke above, and right now it's sitting on support before it continued higher, right? So this is the support region that we have here. What we did also following that is that we did a retracement of this move, so 50% of this move. And you can see that the 50% retracement lines up with this resistance turn support area. So once you did 50% of this move, you can see that this is the support area. We have your graphical level as well. So our call over here was that we could see, right? Apart from that, there's also an ascending trend line. So you can see this region that we have over here. So our call made here is that we could expect price to push higher, where, right, this would be the first target. You can see that this resistance area was respected previously 3 times, right? So you can see following this, price tap into this area once. You see this area. So again, the colored candles represent our projection that we have, right? So you can see this region. So essentially price pushed up. So this is the colored candles that we drew. Essentially, we expect a push into this region and price to continue higher, right? This is the first target and the second target is here, but you can see that price did not reach this area, right? So it just tapped into the first target, and then what we have following, which is a clear break of this ascending trend line and a clear break of this support region here. So this is on pound Aussie. Okay, and the last review that I want to do, it's on gold. So let's take a look at gold. If you guys have any charts requests as well, right, do put them under the questions tab. So let's take a look at gold. So gold played out really nicely. So this was actually a setup that was requested by one of you guys on Wednesday, right? So let's take a look at the higher time frame first. So on the higher time frame, the weekly, you can see this region, right? So on the weekly, prices are sitting on this support area that we've highlighted, this blue zone. And why we highlighted this area as a support, or you can call it demand area over here, it's because even if we stretch this area horizontal across, you can see that this region. So just a quick recap of what we have covered so far in our support resistance areas previously, right? So on the previous educational topic, what you have over here is that this is a resistance level, and then price broke above it and tested this region as a support. So you can see this level, and this is exactly what we see here. Price tested as a resistance, acknowledges this level as a resistance, pushed higher, and then coming into this region, you can see price testing this level as a support multiple times here. So this is the region that we have highlighted as support. Let me just go back to the weekly, right? So this is the region. We also did a Fibonacci retracement, right? So for those of you guys who are not familiar with Fibonacci retracement, right, if we want to use Fibonacci retracement to find support, what we want to do is to identify a high and low, and then the pullback, right? So you can see basically prices move in a zigzag pattern here, and this is the last move before price pulled back. So on this move itself, right, given that this is the last move before we see this pullback or this retracement, what we can do if we want to use Fibonacci retracement to find this support area, right? So essentially what we're trying to do is to see if there are any Fibonacci retracement levels that line up with this graphical area that we have here. So with that in mind, right, what you can do, take a Fibonacci retracement of the low and the high. So when you take the retracement of this move itself, you can see that this area would line up with the 61.8 retracement. So that's what we did, right? We took a low here, end off at a high, and you can see the 61.8 retracement lines up here. So this is on the higher time frame. Now let's go down to the 4 hours. So on the 4 hours, you can see that we don't really see much, right? So in terms of the structure, you have this area over here, prices forming a new high that's formed here, and what we saw on this region itself. So this was on Wednesday, so prices were somewhere here in time where we saw this move. So what we did was to zoom in onto the 30 minutes time frame. You can see this region itself, right? What we see over here, it's price coming in to test this support area. And what's more important is that coming into this region, we saw that price broke structure. So if you look at the smaller time frame, you can see that there was this bearish structure coming in to this weekly zone that we have here, this blue zone, right? This is the weekly support zone. And then what you see following, which is that price broke above the last high. So this is what we see, right? So when we were here on Wednesday, right, we basically saw this move. So we saw price broke above the high. And what we did following that is to identify our support region. So you can see that this is the support region, right, that we've identified, this area over here. You see this region, right? So let me just do a quick replay of the chart. So there's something like that. So this is what we're expecting. So this is the support area. Why we identified this support area again, right? So on support resistance levels, right, on that educational topic that we have covered, recall that when you look at support resistance graphical levels, this, when price is at a resistance, right, you have sellers coming into the market to sell. But when price fails to push lower and breaks above this level, what it then happens is that this region itself becomes a support area. Okay, so this is the idea. So you can see here, price pushed up, you saw price push lower, but it fails to break above this weekly zone, below, right? So it's still holding within this weekly support area, and then following which price broke above this area, tested as a support, and pushed above it, which is why you see this interaction between support and resistance, right? Or you want to call it supply demand. The idea is that basically on this region itself, once we see this kind of interaction, this is where we highlighted our support area here. And if you do a Fibonacci retracement of the move, right? So how do we take the Fibonacci retracement? We want to identify the move. This is the push up, and this is the pullback, right? The retracement. So in using Fibonacci retracement to find support, we want to use the low over here and end off at the high. So that's what we did, 61.8 retracement. You can see this area. So we've identified this entry. So hence the projection. You see this colored candles, right? So essentially we're waiting for price to push into this region and continue to the upside. This is our first target. And this is the second target, right? We also highlighted why we use this as a second target, because if you look to the left, you can see how price interacted with this region multiple times. So you can see on this, right, this played out very nicely. So let me just remove this, right? So essentially, okay, so this is currently what we have. So price tapped into the region, it pushed higher, went beyond this first target, tapped into the second target. And then what you see over here, so recall I talked about support resistance levels. You can see that this first target then became a resistance level, right? It was the previous resistance. And then now it became a support region. Okay. So let me, okay, so I have a question on gold, right? So as of now, retrace back to 1713. So let's take a look at where 1713 is. Okay, so 1713 is this area over here. So let's take a look at the bigger picture first. So I think on Wednesday, there was a question on gold as well as to what is the target, right? So on the daily time frame, if you take a look at this, you can see that on the higher picture, right? So on the daily, prices are still holding below this. It broke below this ascending trend line. You can see this region. So even though it is sitting on this weekly support area here, right, what you want to see on the higher time frame is that here, you can see that prices tested this ascending trend line multiple times. It held multiple times before you see a clear break and retest of this trend line. So on the much bigger time frame, it's still bearish. So apart from this, you can see here, prices are also holding below this descending trend line that we have here. So you see this region. So on the higher time frame for me, still more bearish. But if you look at where we are on the daily right now, so let me just remove this marking, right? Given that the move has played out, right? So I'll just remove this, all these markings here, and let's do a fresh analysis. So let's take a look at where we are now. So if you look at the structure of the market, right, so it's important because the structure can give us a clue as to where prices could potentially be heading. So let me just remove this and we will get to it real quick. Okay, so on this move, you can see essentially where we are right now, right? If you look at the structure of the market, in a bearish market structure, prices would form your lower lows and lower highs, right? In a bullish market structure, it forms a higher low and higher high. Now look at where we are here. We are in a bearish market structure with this lower lows and lower highs being formed. This is the last high that's being formed. You can see price push down, but it fails to break below this low. So in a bearish market structure, we're expecting a new low to be put in before it retraces over here. But you can see that currently where we are right now, prices are still sitting on this weekly support area here. So what this tells me over here is that this area itself, this is the last high, and this is also a resistance area. So notice this region over here. And why this is a resistance, again, right, this was the previous support level, price broke it, retested as a resistance. So notice this, right? So again, back to our support resistance topic, you can see that this is actually one type of resistance level that we have. It's a support turn resistance level, and you see how it plays out here. So in this example, you can see that this is the last high structure. So if price continue higher, this for me would be the target on the daily time frame, right? So this region, so this area over here, let me just put a marking here, right? So you want to, for round number 6, right? Usually I'll go with 1786. So usually I'll go toggle between 20, 50, and 80s, right? Depending on which one is nearer to the resistance zone that we have highlighted. So in this case, this region would probably be the best region here. And this is the resistance, right? Taking the wicks of this last candle. So this is the area. This is on the daily time frame. Let's go to the 4 hours time frame and see what we have currently. So on the 4 hours time frame, we have this area here. So you can see this region, right? So again, looking at just support resistance levels over here, this region itself, right? You can see that there was a clear resistance before the break. So notice this region, right? So if I were to highlight this area across, you can see this area. Let me just put it in a different color. Let's just say in gray. Right, so notice this region over here. See how price interacted with it. Price came in as support and then rejected as a resistance, again held as a resistance. But every time it falls, or rather every time it tested this region, it fails to form a new lower low. So you can see this region. What this tells you is that your buyers are in control here, and following which you see a clear break above the resistance. So notice this, right? So this is on the 4 hours picture. Let's go down to the 1 hour picture. So right now on the 4 hours picture, right, we have a resistance area which price broke and retested this region. But apart from this area itself, right, just look at it graphically, there isn't any nice support region that we have here. What we do have is that you can see that price came in. So for those of you guys who are familiar with supply demand zones that we covered in the earlier session, so let me just hide this background. So we're on the weekly zone here. So I'll hide this for now, right? So notice this area here. We have this demand region that price came in, respected this region. Okay, so you can see this region, price came in, tapped into this region over here. And then it pushed much higher. It also broke this resistance. So what this tells us over here is that this itself, right, this is our H4 area, the H4 demand area. Let's go down to the 1 hour time frame. So on the 1 hour time frame, right, this is currently what we have. To be really frank, right now, where gold currently is, there is no nice setup for me, right? So I will not be taking any of this move itself. For the shorter term, I'm still more bullish on this region itself. I think we could see a further push up, but where it is currently, right, there isn't any nice entries at the moment. The support area that I have over here, it's still this region. It's the same region that we have over here. So this is at around the 1707 area. So this is currently what we have. I think that gold could still continue on its upside. This is the last area that we have, or your last resistance. But where prices are currently, right, I want to see more confirmation. So where it is right now, you can see this region itself, right? It's a resistance turn support area here. So there are two scenarios, right? The first one is for price to tap into this region itself on the smaller time frame. This could be on your 15 minutes time frame. essentially, right, to see if there's confirmation of a bullish move upwards. So when price comes into this region, this is the first area on the 15 minutes that I will watch. You can see this area over here. So again, right, if we were to do a Fibonacci retracement of the whole move, this is the last move before price pulls back. So on this move itself, right, Fibonacci retracement of the move from low to high. Same thing, right? So you can just open up all these key retracement levels. So there's the default levels, right? So it started from 23.6, that's the first one. And you can see the next one is 38.2. So this is the region itself, right? For me, when price comes into this region, you can see the 38.2%. This is the first area for me to watch. Again, why? You can see that in terms of how price reacted, there was a resistance before we saw a strong push up. So when price comes into this region, this is the first region for me to watch. I will not be taking an immediate entry, but rather just seeing how price react over here. So when price comes into this region, right? So I'll just highlight this region itself. What you want to wait for, it's basically a clear change in trend on the smaller time frame. So when price drives into this region, right, go on to the smaller time frame, you can see that usually coming down into this region, you have your lower lows and lower highs being formed. So you want to wait for a clear break in structure on the smaller time frame before retest to continue on the upside. So currently, this is what I see on gold. So this is the first region to watch. The next region, it's basically for price to re-enter and revisit this region again. So notice this, right? You can see again on this area itself, if you look at the smaller time frames picture, right? So just looking at how the candles interact with one another, we have this area over here. There is this area before we saw a strong push up. And within this region itself, you can see that this candle was the candle that was within the zone before price broke above this area. So you see this candle? So price held within this candle before it broke above this region. So when you take the candle over here, right? So I'll just highlight the candle in a different color, let's say in blue, extend this region across. This is what you see here. You can see that following which, right? This is basically a demand candle. Price came in, tapped into this area, and then pushed up much higher. So this is how you can take a look at it. So these are the two zones that I'm keeping a lookout for right now, right? So currently where it is, there is no entry for me. So this is on gold, right? So I have a question, right? So can you check on pound, Kiwi, and Aussie franc? So yes, let's take a look at pound, Kiwi, and Aussie franc. Okay, so let's start from the higher time frame first. So let's start from the weekly and see what we have. So let me just remove all of this. Right, so on the weekly time frame on pound Kiwi, you can see that prices are sitting, it's pretty much in a sideways trend, right? You don't have clear higher lows or higher highs being formed in terms of the structure here. So generally, I want to focus on this portion of the move here. And the reason why is because each candle itself represents a weekly movement. So as much as possible, we want to narrow down this region. So this is on the weekly, right? There isn't anything much that you can see over here. What we do see is that price came in and you saw a huge rejection of this area once, and then following which price came into this region again. And currently it's holding above this region. You can see that if you take the wicks of the candle, this is basically the money area that you have, right? Price came in, it's currently sitting on this level. When we go down to the daily time frame, this is currently what we have on the daily time frame, the same region that you have over here. On the daily, it's really trading within a range, as you can see, right? So this is the support area. You can see this resistance area here again, right? So this is the support and resistance area. How so? You can see that price came in as a support, and then maybe I should just layer over this. So price came in as a support before it broke below this region and retested as a resistance. And right now it's still holding below this area. So what this tells us is that on the smaller time frame, on the daily time frame, right, we need to see more consolidation coming into this region, right? So this is the two zones that we have. On the 4 hours time frame, you can see here, right? So what we have over here is that prices, this is the last low that was being formed. You can see a push down and price pull back up into this region, and it put in a new low here, but price came into this region, and right now it's just moving sideways. This itself is not a new low, but rather it's within this range. So right now, if you look at the range on the 4 hours, this is actually the range that price is trading within, because the movement within this area, you can see that the movement within this range, price failed to put in either a new low or high. So within this region itself, you can see that it didn't put in a new low and high. So there isn't anything much that we can see over here. What we do have currently here is that if you zoom in to the 4 hours time frame and just try and follow what prices are doing right now, you can see here, right? So recall we talk about supply demand zones. So this area, this is the higher time frames demand. So I'll just remove this, right? And let's focus on this portion of the chart. So when you look at this portion of the chart, you can see this area itself, right? Price came in and it respected this zone here. You can see this area, right? So let me maybe just zoom into the smaller time frame and you can see how the support resistance levels play out here as well. So focus your attention on this part of the chart, right? And you can see here, essentially, this is what we have on the higher time frame. We have this area, so price consolidated on this region. You can see this area here, price consolidated over here before we see a clear break above this region, right? And if you go to the right of this chart, you can see that essentially this region then serves as the demand area, which price came in to retest this area again here. So this is currently the support area. So let's go back to the H4, right? Because this is where we picked the candle off earlier on. So once we have this on the H4 time frame, let me just remove this. So we have this area, right? And price came in, tap into this region. You can see that the next area that price came in before we saw the strong push up is actually this region over here. Okay, so this is the region for me. So this is the area that I want to watch price enter and see how it reacts here. Again, in terms of the retracement level, what you can do. So this is the last move up before the retracement. So what we can do is to take a Fibonacci retracement of this move. So if we want to use Fibonacci retracement to find support, we want to start from our low and end at our high. So that's what we will do, right? So Fibonacci retracement of this move, right, from low to high. You open up this key level. So these are all the default levels. So for you, those of you guys who are not familiar, you can just open up all of them, right? So this is actually default on trading view. I'm missing out on a 50, right? So that's still a 50%. So essentially, these are all the orders. You can see that what we are trying to do over here is to see if there are any retracement levels that line up with this supply demand areas that we've highlighted. So you can see this region itself, right? It'll be the 78.6 area. So I'll just remove the rest, right? Because this is irrelevant. So 78.6 region over here. So right now where prices are currently, right? There is no setup for me. I'm just waiting, right? So if I want to play a move over here, I'm waiting for price to come into this region. Same thing. This is on a 4 hours time frame. You can go down to the 1 hour time frame or 30 minutes time frame when price interacted into this region and see if there are any reversal patterns on the smaller time frame. So let me just go to the 30 minutes. Okay. So let's see where it is, right? So currently there isn't much, right? You can see that prices are just trading very small movements here, right? So I want to see how price react coming into this region. So this is the key region for me. You can see the 78.6 retracement. And for those of you guys who are familiar with Fibonacci extension, right? So Fibonacci extensions are basically zigzag patterns. So in this case, you can see this itself is a zigzag pattern here. We've identified, right? You can see the zigzag pattern. And what we want to do, having identified the zigzag pattern, is to take these 3 reversal points. So you can take this as the first point, second point, and third point. And what we're trying to do is to project the Fibonacci extension. So the idea behind this is that when there are a lot of retracement extension levels that line up there, what this shows you is that there's a higher probability of that setup. So for Fibonacci extension, right, just to share a bit more, personally, I use the 61.8, 78.6, and 100%. These are the 3 common ones that we have. So you can see that this region itself, your 100%, I'll put it in a different color, probably in pink. You can see this region. So this area itself, this is the 100%, and this is where we can see, right? So if price taps into this region, I will go down to the smaller time frame, probably the 30 minutes, let's say, right? And see if there are any resistance levels that are formed in here and a clear break above that. So when price breaks above this resistance zone, right, or the supply zones, it tells me that demand is in control. So this is the region, right? This is the region that I'll be waiting for on pound Kiwi. In terms of the target, right? So this is on, we want to go back to the 4 hours time frame. So if price drives into this region and you see that demand zones over here, they're starting to come in control, or your resistance areas are failing, what this tells you is that my target over here, I would target this H4 high, because this is the last move, right, that drove prices into this demand area. So this would be the first target, right? You can put it in close if you want to, right, to capture the move here. Okay, so this is what we have on the H4. right? So this would be a initial target for me if we can put it in this level here, right? So this would be the first target, and also part of it where I will close the partials and also move to break even. So this is on pound Kiwi. Let's take a look at Aussie franc, and then we have the last one on Euro pound before we call it a day. Okay, so let me just again remove all of this, right? Let's start from the weekly time frame first. So on the weekly time frame, this portion of the chart, you can see that there isn't, okay, you have a support area over here, price is sitting on the support region, that's one. You also have an potential ascending trend line that prices are respecting here. So this is on the weekly time frame. What we want to do also in line with this, again, right, identify our move, Fibonacci retracement. This is your pushed up and a pullback. So I want to take a Fibonacci retracement of this low and end at this high. So that's what we will be doing, right? So Fibonacci retracement of this move from low to high. You can see that price came in, right? You are sitting on this 78.6 retracement level here. So this is on the weekly picture. So on the weekly, we have prices potentially sitting on the support region over here, right? On the daily picture, what we have over here, again, let me just remove all of this and we focus on this portion of the chart. So on this portion of the chart, you can see that on the daily time frame, essentially what we have over here, it's that you have this low. This is the last low. So price pushed down, and you can see this movement within this area, right? So this is the range that we're looking at here. So nothing much on the daily, right? You have prices sitting on within this range. Let's go to the 4 hours time frame. So on the 4 hours time frame, just before that, right? Let me just put in the daily region first. So this is your daily low. So let me just mark this out as the daily low. Okay, and we go to the 4 hours time frame. So on the 4 hours time frame, we can see, so this is the daily region. So on the 4 hours, in terms of support resistance level, you have this most immediate level here. You have this level, right? So how we take a look at this is that you can see here, essentially price testing this region twice, broke above it, and then right now it's sitting on this area again. So this is the first region. If you put it in line chart, you can see it clearly as well, right? So you can take a look at this. You can just draw a horizontal line across essentially here. So look at how price reacted here. Price came to test it as a support and then as a resistance. So this is the resistance area that we have, right? So within the 4 hours, you can see that prices are within this zone itself over here. And currently it's still sitting on resistance area that we have here. So this is the 4 hours resistance area, right? Let me go back slightly. Okay, so another thing that we can do, having identified this area, what we want to do next, again, right, see if there are any levels that line up here. So what you can check on your retracement level, Fibonacci retracement, you can see that this is the last move. So if I were to pan out this move, probably in line chart, you can see it clear as well. Here, price push down, pushed up, push down, up, and then you see this strong move down. So this for me is a significant move, right, before the pullback. So what you can do, Fibonacci retracement starting from the high, ending at the low. So let's take a look at that and see what we have. High to low, Fibonacci retracement of this move, you can see your 23.6%, or rather in this case, I think the 38.2, so lying around this region. Okay, so I would not consider this 23.6. The reason for that is because on this move itself, price already broke this region. So there isn't much in terms of the 23.6, so I'll remove this. And this is the resistance area that you have here. Okay, 38.2 is lying slightly above this region, but even if you look at how price interact on the smaller time frame in terms of support and resistance areas, you can see that this region itself, right? So back to the 4 hours, you can see that this region itself here. So I would consider this support area, and I will cover the high of this candle here. Right, so this area itself would be the support and resistance area for me. Right, so it's good to know that the 38.2% is just slightly higher. So in this case, I'll probably just leave with this. Right, so depending on where you take this retracement level, if you take it higher, then the retracement will be much higher. So I'll just ignore this for now, right? So this region over here, you can see, right? So this area. So currently for me right now, prices are still sitting in a resistance area here. You don't really see much on the 1 hour, right? It's pretty much the same setup on as compared to the 4 hours. Let's go to the 30 minutes time frame. Okay, so on the 30 minutes time frame, we can see what we have over here currently. We have prices pushing into this demand area and price testing this resistance area again, right? This is on the 30 minutes time frame. You can see that price also interacted with this region itself, and what we have over here. So this will combine a little bit of concept on demand and supply. So if you look at demand and supply region over here, right, essentially what we have is that this area, let me just look at it on the 15 minutes, right? So what you see over here is that you can see that price came into this region. So notice this region. So price came in over here, right? And it respected this small resistance that you have over here. So you saw this consolidation on this area itself, right? So price consolidated, respected this resistance before it pushed higher. And then following which, you can see this region, the same region itself. So let me just highlight this consolidation, extend it across. You can see that what happens following that. So let me just change this into a, let's say a green zone or maybe a pink zone. So you can see over here, right? Essentially, this is the last demand area. Price came in, responded to this demand area, pushed higher, and then failed completely. So what this shows you is that this area itself, right? This push up is the one that caused that demand to fail. And what happens following that is that when demand fails, it creates a supply region. Right, so for those of you guys who attended the session on market demand and supply, you can see that when demand fails, it creates a supply region over here, and price came into the supply region. So this is one, right? So in this case, right, what you want to wait for, essentially, you can either take an entry here on a resistance with more downside expected. The next support area that we have over here would be on the smaller time frame, this region, right? A break below this region could see price push much lower, where to? You can see this area again, right? So this is your region, price came in, respected this region multiple times, right, as support. And then again, right, if I extend it across, you can see the same region here. So for me, right, when price push, prices are currently holding below resistance, we could see a push down to this region itself, this one, a clear break below this region, a retest of it as resistance. The next target will be here. So this is on the smaller time frame. Okay, so this is currently what we have here, right? On the 4 hours, still within this zone itself. What we want to do next is just wait for clear structure to be formed. So either on the 15 minutes or 1 hour, so that we know which is the target. So in general, right, when there's clear structure being formed, right, if over here, so let's say in a bearish market structure, we expect price to continue to form lower lows and lower highs. So in this case, if price pulls back to put in a new low, but it fails to break the high fails to break the previous low that we have, then what it shows us is that when you have a change in trend, right, or demand basically being in control here, then we can target the high that we have here. Yeah, so this is on Aussie franc. So this is the area, right? So let's just put a marker here as well so that we can see. Okay, let's take a look at the last chart that we have, right, which is on Europound. Oh yeah, right. Okay. Before Europound, right? Let me take a look at dollar. I'm so sorry that I missed out on the dollar index. So let's take a look at the dollar index first, right? Since that request came in at the start of the session. So let's take a look at the dollar index before we hop onto Europound. So on the higher time frame, right? Let me just remove all of these drawings, right? So on the weekly time frame, you can see that we don't really have a resistance level over here, right? If I go to the monthly as well, okay, so on the monthly, you have this area over here. Again, support resistance levels, right? So recall when we talk about support resistance levels, when price, you can see resistance, price came in as a support, and then it failed. So this region itself here, you can see price came in as a resistance, tested as a support region here. And then it tested as a support, and then it failed completely. Extend this across. You can see that this is where prices are currently on right now, this area. So you can put it in terms of line chart, you can see it clearer as well, right? So look at this region. Essentially, price came in, tested as a resistance, tested as a support. And then if I extend this level across, you can see that this is currently where it's sitting on right now. So this is resistance area, right, on the higher time frame. Same thing, right? We'll do a Fibonacci retracement. You can see that this is a strong push down before that whole pullback. So what we want to do, retracement of the move from high to low here. So this is what we'll be doing, right? Fit retracement of the move from high to low, open up the key levels. And you can see on this region itself, right, the 78.6 area, you can see this retracement. So what I did is that I took a retracement of this move from the high to low. And you can see that in line with this, let me just remove all this unnecessary levels, right, or the marking so that we can see this clearer. So in this region itself, you can see the 78.6 level. Price came in, tapped into the 78.6 level. It's also on the resistance area. We saw the interaction between support and resistance. So this is on the monthly time frame. So you can see on the weekly time frame what you have, right? On the weekly, it's that it's still in a bullish market structure. Prices are still pushing up to form your higher lows and higher highs. You can see this is the last low and price pushed up. It also broke the previous high. So for me, on the weekly, it's still in a bullish market structure. Let's take a look at the daily. So let's move on to the daily time frame. You can see right now you're just seeing a reaction off here. Really nothing much on the daily time frame. If you look at support resistance levels, notice this, right? We have this area. So let me just remove this monthly resistance, probably change it to a lighter color so that we can focus on the recent developments of the chart. So let me just remove or change this, right? So I'll just lighten this. Okay, so we have this region. So you can see here, right? Price came in, essentially tapped into this region once and then broke above it. But before it broke above it, you can see this interaction. So notice this, right? So if I were to highlight this area, this is the resistance area that you have. You can see this resistance area here, the one in blue, right? So price came in, tapped into this resistance area. We saw this acknowledgement before it fails completely. And right now, prices are within this region again. So again, extend this across, right? The concept of resistance and support level. This would be the candle. You can see that this is the candle that caused price to push higher into to break this high. You can see this break, the break of this previous high here. Right, so this is the candle that caused price to drive into this region. You can see that currently, at least on the daily time frame, it is still sitting on this candle, which is the support or demand region, right? So Fibonacci retracement of this move from low to high. Okay, so same thing, open up the key retracement level. You can see the 38.2% is within this region right now. So let me just zoom in onto the 4 hours time frame. So this is the candle, right? If you want to refine it on the 4 hours, you can see that this candle itself will be this region here. So this is currently the support region, right? So your question was whether dollar index would retrace to 109 to 9. Oh, okay, it already went beyond this level. You can see that over here, right? So on the higher time frame, it's sitting on a resistance area here. On a 4 hours time frame, you don't really have any clear structure, right? You see prices forming your higher lows and higher highs coming into this region, and then a clear break of it. So what I think that could happen is that price could still sit on this region for a while, a clear pullback within this area. If you go to the 15 minutes or even the I believe the 30 minutes time frame, you see a very clear change in market structure here. So recall when we say that prices are forming higher lows and higher highs coming into the resistance area, this is the last low that's been put in. Price failed to form a higher high and you can see a clear break of structure. So on the higher time frame, it's more bearish, right? You can see on the 30 minutes as well, there's a clear break of structure and it's more bearish in line with your, I believe this is the monthly time frame. Right, the monthly area, this resistance area here. So if you go to the 30 minutes time frame, you can see, right, there's a change in structure. But right now, where it is currently, I think that we could see it's still currently on support region, right? So we could see a pullback into this leg itself before price continue to the downside. So if you look at it on the higher time frame, right, this currently on a 1 hour is still sitting on the support region. So two scenarios. One is that price just breaks right below it, retest this region as a resistance before going to the downside. That's one. Or the other way is that prices are currently sitting on support, right? So I will not anticipate the breakup, right? So what I'll do over here, right, currently on this region itself, right, price could pull back and deeper into this, within this leg itself before it continues to the downside. So let's take a look at it on the 30 minutes time frame, right? Since we saw clear market structure here. So let me just remove all these markings. And let's see what we have here. So currently on the 30 minutes time frame, or if you want a much wider version on the 1 hour as well, you see clear structure, right? Support and resistance levels. So the same thing happening over and over again. So this is the resistance area, but really anywhere within this leg itself would serve as a resistance. So this is the first graphical resistance. You can again take the retracement, high to low, right? So Fibonacci retracement of the move, depending on where price pulls back. So if price puts in a new lower low, you will have to adjust the retracement level accordingly. So retracement of this move from high to low, you can see here. You open up the key levels. Let me just open up. So there you have the 50% here. Okay, so this is the 50% retracement and our Fibonacci extension. So recall the zigzag pattern. This is the zigzag pattern. So again, we want to use the turning points to project our extension levels. So when we do that, you can see this extension level. So 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. Same thing, right? So you have your 78.6 extension line here as well. So this is the smaller time frames resistance area here. Overall direction for me is more bearish. And you can see that change in structure as well on the 30 minutes, 1 hour, where these lows are broken. So yeah, so this is my view on dollar index, right? And like what you see as well, right? Dollar index is no longer bullish. So yeah, so this is my view as well, given that it's on the technical side, it's also sitting on the monthly resistance, you can see here. And on the 30 minutes time frame, you see that prices are still reacting. There's a change in structure here. So in terms of where my pullback to, if you go on to the daily, you can see, right, within this daily zone itself, it's still within this structure. You can see this region over here. So anywhere within this leg itself, right, this is still bullish. So we could see a deeper pullback into this region. But in terms of breaking right below the low itself, this is not something I would anticipate, because if you look at the structure on the daily, it's still bullish. So this region itself, right, again, look at your support resistance levels. This would be the last resistance. You can see a clear break here. You can see how price reacted here, right? So price came down, tested this region, and broke above it. So this for me would be the resistance area, resistance and support area over here. Right, so same thing, retracement of the move from low to high. This move itself. So this would be the level to watch, right, when price retraces here. So coming into this region, I believe this is the 61.8. So yeah, so this region. So this is at around the 107 level, right? So if price breaks below, I think we could see a pullback into this region. So this is currently on the daily. If you look at the daily, the structure is still bullish, right? Given that prices still form your new higher highs and higher lows. And right now it's on the weekly resistance. So this is what I see on dollar index, right? Let's take a look at Europound, and this will be the last chart that we have for today. Let me just remove all of these markings, right? Okay, so let's take a look at it on the higher time frame first. So on the monthly, right, you can see on the monthly, you have this potential support and resistance level over here, right? So price came in, reacted as a support, and then failed, tested as a resistance, and pushed lower, and right now it's sitting on this resistance area. This is on the monthly time frame. Fibonacci retracement of this move, we can take the high to the low here. You can see, right, this is a push down and a pullback. So with that, once we do a Fibonacci retracement of the move from high to low, same thing, right? Open up the key levels. You can see that this region itself lines up with the 50%. Okay, so let me just put a magnet mode to it so that I can capture the reversal points nicely and see where the 50% lies. So there we go. This is the 50%, right? And this is your region. So this is just a region on your monthly. And then we go down to the weekly time frame, same region, right? So you can see it very clearly on the weekly, right? How price interacted with this region as a support, resistance, and then again came into this region, but it fails to form a new lower low, right? And then it continued higher up. So right now prices are sitting on this region on the weekly. If you go to the daily time frame, you can see in terms of the structure, right? So price basically put in a new low here, and then it pushed higher. And right now it's sitting on this weekly area with the weekly resistance as well. So there are two things over here, right? The first one, maybe just go on to the 4 hours time frame so that we can identify this clearer. You can see over here, right, this region itself. If you go on to the 4 hours time frame, what we have over here, so two things. One, on the daily time frame, you can see this region itself. This is the leg, right? So price pushed up, pushed lower, and then it forms this. It's not breaking above the high here, right? It's still coming into this weekly resistance. So you have this new low that's being formed over here, and you have this horizontal line, right? So if you draw a horizontal line across over here, you can see that there is clear interaction between demand and supply. Price came in, reacted, right? It failed to close above this high. So if you look at it in line chart, you can see it clearer as well. Essentially what we have over here, price came in, tested this region as a support, tested as a resistance, acknowledges it as a resistance before we saw this clear break above this region. So this would be an area to keep a lookout for on the daily time frame. If we go on to the 4 hours time frame, right? So let me just remove all this markings. You can see this region over here. So essentially we have this support region that's being highlighted. And on the 4 hours, you can see that prices are still putting in your new lows and new high, higher lows and higher highs being formed. And this is the last leg of this move up, right? So right now we are in the region over here, the weekly resistance. So let's go on to the 1 hour time frame and see what we have. So even on the 1 hour time frame, you can see this region itself. Again, support resistance concepts coming into play, right? This area. So you can look at it in terms of candlestick patterns, or if you're not comfortable, you can go in terms of line chart as well. You can see that this is basically a horizontal level. So I don't really like to draw a specific level. Rather, I like to work with zones. You can see, right? So clear zones over here. The price came in, interacted with one another. You can see this region. So it was the previous resistance level, and then price hesitated, consolidated here, tested before it pushed higher. So what we have over here on the higher time frame is this region here. So on the 4 hours, 1 hour, it's still bullish for me until we see a clear break above, below this region. So below this region, a retest of it as a resistance before continuing to the downside. This would be the smaller time frames resistance here, right? So this would be the next region to watch, this region here. So this is currently what we have. I think on the 1 hour and 4 hours right now, it's still bullish, right? So right now I'm not taking any shots, even though we are sitting on the higher time frames resistance. You can see that where it is currently, demand areas, right, or support levels are still being respected. So this is my view on Europound right now, right? If we do see a break and close below this region, a retest of this would be my next target. Over here, you can see again the same interaction between support and resistance levels. When there is a clear break in structure, you can see that this is the last low that's being formed, right? So when there's a clear break below this level, what this tells you is that you can then wait for pullback to play the shots, because this would then be in line with the higher time frames weekly area, weekly resistance. Okay, so I hope that answers all of the questions for today, right? So thanks for such an interactive session. It's great, right? So I hope that you guys will come for the next session as well, and also come with the chat questions, right? If anything, we'll also be doing a review of the setups. So you're very welcome, Zoran. Okay, so with that, we have come to the end of the session, right? So thank you everyone for your enthusiasm for today, right? So we will be catching you guys again next week, right? Just before I end the session, right? Just to show those of you guys who have not, maybe you're new to this session over here, right? So we have, you can go to vantagemarkets.com/webinars, right? We do have the webinar schedule out. So on Wednesdays and Fridays, we'll be doing the live analysis session, right? We will be showing trade setups, doing a review of the setups. And if you guys have any questions as well, right, do come with your questions like what we have for today. So it's an amazing session. And then on Thursdays, right, this is when we will be covering specific educational topics. So these concepts that you see me use in terms of support resistance, supply demand, right, using higher time frames analysis, combining all of them together, we do cover all of these concepts, these theories in our Thursday educational sessions, right? So there are specific topics on them. You can also find your schedule on vantagemarkets.com/webinars. So with that, we have come to the end of the session, right? Thanks everyone for today. Have a great weekend, right? Enjoy your weekend, and we will catch you guys again next week. Thank you and goodbye.